Hi, and welcome to Yee Fow Adventures. My name's Darren, and this channel is about backpacking, cooking, and finding your next adventure. In today's video, we're going to be hearing from a world-renowned chef, David Soohoo, and he's going to talk about the mountain chef of Yosemite, Tai Sing, how he came over and was the cook for the European Geological Survey. So let's go check it out.
Explain why Thai artist. She is she's still alive, and she wrote about her grandparents' experience coming over during the gold rush and the railroad time, and how the families experienced everything as a Yee. So it goes all the way to why the Yees came. Okay? So this also is true for the Wongs and true for the Lees and basically other surnames, okay? So those books I do recommend, and of course I really admire what Richard Lowe has done. That's a platform that's just amazing to where Tai Sing can be at. I find that amazing. And Sacramento is what we call Yee Fow, the second town. In the old days, everything revolved around politically with Sacramento. That's basically the way it was. So we call that Tai Fow, and Tai, big. First is San Francisco, okay? So here, today I think, to move quickly, basically you might call it a celebration. Okay, but I want to remind you quickly before I start that, because we do have a cooking demonstration, okay? And this is not a Gong Fu demonstration, it's a cooking demonstration. But there are parallels, okay? So I will demonstrate something, and hopefully you'll see whether it be Gong Fu, art, or cooking, they're all part of our culture. Okay, and of course, as you already can tell me, the Chinese restaurants since the pandemic, 50% of them have closed and they're not reopening. So the industry is devastated right now. And then there are new political things going on, like electrification, makes it even harder, okay? So anyway, so there are all sorts of ingredients here, okay? So let's get started by putting the first slide. That's me, okay? So Venice Island, the clubhouse, it's in the Delta, right there, Stockton, off 5, make it right on 8 Mile Road, and that's Baron Hilton. Baron Hilton's grandfather founded the Hilton Hotel.
Wow.
My boss. And he has a duck club, okay, in the Delta that of course, you know, the Chinese built. Okay, moving on. This is the James Beard House in New York. That's the James Beard House. And recently, of course, Martin Yan has Lifetime Achievement, and you have other people getting awards. So they're open to more about our culture of food, James Beard House. By invitation only, you can cook there. Okay, so that is something I think is a good platform to show our culture. And this is the old days. So the walk actually started in Macy's, actually, with Taylor name. Before that, even your home, if you look at your parents, they actually cooked with a Revere stainless steel pot. It was that, so there was really no walk. Oh, thank you. So anyway, moving forward, this is Wolfgang Puck. I like him because he supported all ethnic cuisine. Okay? And to put it in a nutshell, everything started about the history of the Chinese in Sacramento, and that's in the downtown on 6 basically I Street. What happened is they wanted to build, and they dug and they found there's a second level. And that's all of a sudden they found bones there. So they had no choice but to stop and then find out what's going on. So the archaeological materials uncovered on the blocks there when they were excavated by putting wood, and they would go area by area, and then they can find out what the Chinese ate, what they did not, and on. But we're sticking to food right now, okay? And so Sonoma State University led the way. Okay, so they're known. And here we have Mary Praxeles and Adrian Praxeles. They're the two archaeologists that led the way. They're famous now for the history of the Chinese. So this discloses a lot of things. Let me tell you what they found. So they found, what did they eat? Okay, what did they eat? You can see that, okay? I have to keep moving. Okay. And here, from the river, okay, from the river, these are the fish that they ate. Okay? So, yes. And pork was the most expensive, as well as the most popular with the Chinese. You could see that they ate all sorts of things, from turtles to whatever, okay? Nothing is wasted, and they can eat everything, you know, because they have a history. And the reason why California is amazing when it comes to food is because the flyway. This is where the birds fly from Canada up all the way down. That's the flyway. And with the flyway and the delta, we have everything. So from the gold rush, they had everything. And they also would not come unless they brought their ingredients. They brought everything. Okay. So the cuisines were quite amazing. And I want you to note, this is our Sacramento Delta. See it? So this is our Sacramento Delta. You can see the rivers and everything else. And the Duck Club was somewhere down there. This is our Delta. And this is Guangdong. This is the Pearl River Delta. This is where everybody came from. Okay? And notice what happened? It's the same darn thing, flipped 90 degrees. So not only did they come here, they were already knew what to do. There's nothing here strange to them. They were already cutting wood. They were already fishing. They were doing everything. Okay? And you can see Hong Kong, Macau, and this is where they went on a ship and they came to America. So I want to quickly note something. Tai Sing came from there. Okay? I'll explain why. So why did the Chinese come? I'm not going to give you a long lecture, but basically they came for the California gold rush. Okay? Everybody knows about that, of course. So it's called Gim San, Gold Mountain. Okay? But also, of course, the Chinese came to America because there were lots of problems. They had to escape overpopulation, there was unemployment, there was poverty, there was sickness, they were hungry, and there were so many political things going on that thousands and thousands of people died. So they had a good reason to come. Okay? They had a good reason to come. But at the same time, I want to let you know what the ship. I'm jumping around a little bit, just a little bit. And the reason why is because you need to know this because of the railroad, which obviously that is. So to go from New York, come all the way over here, if you just look at these months and months and months and months and months, you can see how long it took to get to from New York all the way to China. You have to spend pretty much a year of your life just to get there and come back. Isn't that insane? So I sure cannot live on a boat that long. But, okay. And the other thing, of course, well, let's just keep going. So this is the Transcontinental Railroad. Because of the Transcontinental Railroad, we started celebrating the 100th anniversary, blah, 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 okay? But the main thing I want to say is it changed everything, because by connecting the railroads, instead of 30 days from New York to California, it became 10 days, okay? And so the Transcontinental Railroad, so the Civil War just ended. So this restored the nation. It gave everybody jobs. Politically, finally, the United States was between the North and the South. They had a common. They had growth. Okay. Same time, what's very important to note is China. They started trading, so they wanted pelts, porcelain. At the same time, of course, we ran out of things to provide them, so you had the opium trade. But anyway, let's move on, okay? We always go back. So again, I recommend this book because it really is a good book, okay? Bury My Bones. And in Bury My Bones, you have a Chinese banquet in the 1852. This is basically in the Sacramento Union. So it's actually in the newspapers and a book. So we learn a little bit about the dinner. So the archaeologists found that the Chinese were boundary people. We don't push too hard. We listen and we created a meal for powerful people in the family association to bring in the politicians. So what happened is, if you look at the story, you'll find that they have no chopsticks. They have knives and forks. But here's the menu. It is the menu, and basically, I want to just say, the meals cooked back then are just as good as today, if not better. Okay. So, and I also want to add here that once again, okay, the Chinese were not naive. They knew how to make deals work, how to get things done. Okay, and here you can see the meal, and I kind of broke down to Chinese, all the liquors served. All the hats there are champagne, so almost every course was with some sort of alcohol. Okay? And why do you think why do you think you might need alcohol? Nobody? Okay. Well, alcohol, first of all, of course, it loosens your tongue. but we'll just leave it at that. There'll be another lecture about why. Okay, here's an example. By taking a fish from the Sacramento River, all you have to do is cut this an angle, and then cut it this way. And if you simply marinate it, and you put the egg wash there, and you dust it in cornstarch or flour, and then you fry it, it shrinks and makes a pine cone. Okay, and then you can take some pine cones from the Indians. The Chinese did trade with the local American Indians. You have a beautiful dish by techniques. Here's another one. Same technique of the pine cone, but instead of frying it, you steam it. Push it together, it becomes a frog. Okay? And of course, seasonally, all you have to do, some of you know, just go out to Yuba City or Manteca, get a big bucket, and you get snails. Okay? And so you have this water snail, very delicious, and you eat it because food is medicine. It cleans out your guts. Okay? So the saliva that you see coming out of the snails actually serves a purpose as well. So if you want clean your stomach, eat it. Here they have, let's see, so this kind of disappeared, but you can go and get chicken and boil it, make a clear broth, put dried shiitake mushroom, black mushroom. Then you have this very cleansing soup that almost every banquet, you already know, I don't have to tell you that, right? Because you start and clean your palate, clean your body. You need to get hydrated. And that's why back in the early railroad days, they don't get sick because they understand hydration. Here we have a duck, maybe a chicken, not worthy of it, but this is a duck worthy of it. You simply debone the whole duck, and then you simply push it together with rice, and then you squeeze it, and you have something like as you can see, okay? It's a gourd, shaped like a gourd. So it's fun to eat because you take a big spoon, you scoop it out, and you get the surprise inside. Okay, it could be in here. Okay. So as a chef, I may put truffles in there. I may put a gold ring in there and make my wife happy. There is no exact right thing to do. Here, while the railroads were being built, you have the journals of Sean Sullivan. He was a young water person who ran around and supplied water for all the builders. Make sense? So when he wrote about his life watching the Chinamans at the time, they were just called Chinamans, okay? They all look alike, kind of stereotype, okay? But it was interesting because he wrote the diary and then was picked up in 2010. And basically, here's what's going on. They were able, Strobridge is the guy who actually managed all the groups of the Chinese working on the railroad. And typically, it would be 20 to 30 people, and you would have one chef. So there were a lot of chefs that came over. In fact, I'll tell you right now, if you look at the manifest, the passenger shipping, who's who, what did they declare kind of job, you'll find that maybe one out of 20 people that came over, the Chinese that came over, were actually cooks. And you can check it out yourself, okay? So here is a typical place where the Chinese worked. And each side, there'd be 3 levels. This is very traditional. And each side, there would be beds in 3 levels, and of course, each side would end up on the wall. 3 times 3 is 9. Both sides of the wall of the train would be, you would house 2 times 5, 18 people. And the back part of this same railroad, you would find cups and bowls hanging, chopsticks there. And then, if you look at there's a chimney. That's where you make your tea, stay hydrated. And on the back part, going along the end of the train would be a store, because the Chinese had to buy things. They were not provided. The food was not included in their $1 a day job. So here, the young man writes, and he writes and says, hey, they have some sort of rice. And at the time, there was the California rice was not around. It was just, new. It was not industry. It was brown rice that was not husked, so it was a little more, had more fiber. So if you want to make jook, just buy brown rice, which simply means they left out the outside. Okay? And then they put it in a big pot, and then boil it. They take a chicken, throw it in there, or whatever they shot. It could be a bear, anything. Okay? And they put in some sort of seaweed. Actually, it was this stuff, bean curd sheets. And this is basically why soybean, because it makes the rice jump out at you because of what you might call umami, glutamic acid. They're all, your brain is wired to find protein to survive. That's why adding a little bit of soy sauce your brain is full thinking soybean, tofu, all makes your brains happy. Okay? But if you, again, everything is just for fun. And that is, if I really love you, then I would take the sheet and I'll make it wet, and I'll tie knots. Okay? So the industry has produced this, hoping you'll buy it. So these are cheating ways, but they're all the same. Okay? So you boil it and it becomes super thick, and you might put some ginkgo just to make your memories of home might be the case, okay? And then they ate this with tea. Always they have a bowl, scoop it out, you drink tea, and you're back to work. No problem, right? That's the food of the workers. Whether you're in the woods, if you're traveling on a ship to come here, it would be jook, okay? And today I have jook for you to eat, but if there was extra 100 people, I would just double with water. And I promise you, you still love it. You won't even know, okay? So that's how efficient jook is. Most of you unconsciously hate jook because that's the way you save money. Your parents probably gave you jook after Thanksgiving because we want to save money. Nothing is wasted, okay? But if you have a lot of money, of course, I would settle with a prime rib next day. Okay, let's move on. So here's your jook. It's simple. 1 cup of rice to 7 cups of water or broth. Okay, that's the formula. And so I gave you a recipe for that. That is one of the healthiest things to eat when you don't feel well. It's neutral. Okay, it's neutral, meaning it won't hurt you. It's good for when you're a senior. Okay, so let's move on. So now we get into the respect of Tai Sing. So Tai Sing, the reason why it's so hard is because I do understand Cantonese. So when somebody says Tai Sing, it makes no sense to me. Because Tai simply means the firstborn of the child of the family, or it is the most successful person. So if I see you're successful, I'll call you Tai Norman Fong or something. But Tai or Tai Sing, using that name, implies that Tai Sing has succeeded by R.B. Marshall, his boss. He recognized that this guy actually is happy. He has succeeded. So we call him Tai Sing. So you'll see that historically in many books, there are many Tai Sings. So I might call him Tai Sing Fong, Tai Sing blah, 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 okay? But anyway, so the search goes on, trying to help, which Richard Lowe has done incredibly amazing. And I have to say, Jack Shu, Yin Yin, you guys have put this into a statement I can make. Tai Sing is the only chef ever with a mountain named after him. There's no other chef ever. Okay. So now, here we go. That, of course, as you already know, we already know, this is the Stephen Mather dinner in the woods that created the National Park Service in 1915. But what you need to know is there was a second trip, 1916. Okay, and there's a diary of that as well. So you can actually go dwell into the depth of Tai Sing more, okay? And so this is the person who wrote the first one, called The Missing Year. It's very interesting, day by day. And this is the second trip, I believe, okay? And let's see here.
At the bottom.
Yeah, the bottom, okay.
The demigod.
Yeah, the demigod. Thank you very much. Okay, that's the word I wanted to use, okay? So he's a demigod. What the heck that means, okay? So I'll let you search I'll let you think about it. And of course, this is Richard Lowe, and this is a platform as well. Okay, I mean, it is the platform. And Yin Yin it started this. Let's go forward. There were many camp cooks that were Chinese. And the reason why that's the case is because if I brought in an Irishman, they probably would be drunk and not reliable. That was a stereotype at the time. I didn't say it, okay? But anyway, so the desire for Chinese camp cooks actually were quite high. And so as you know, the Moana Hotel, we have another Thai thing, if you want to call it that. He was the head chef for many, many years, okay? Which Indian can tell you. There was a Sentinel Hotel, but back then, I want to remind you also, what is a cook? We don't call them chef type. What is it? So here's a typical restaurant. It would be one, where's that guy? Where's the kid? My angle. Anyway, you have the father and you have the sons. There he is. So that's all it is. When you look closely, you'll find there's a big vat there, and in the back there's a wok there. Okay, that is your restaurant. You walk up there and you say, "I'm hungry," and then you basically trade. So Tai Sing's coroner report, Cantonese to California probate papers. So here, so we actually know what happened. We know how he died. We have a coroner's report, okay? Then we have basically the guy who ran him over. so Gustav Stallone, okay, that tells about what happened in detail. Then we have, at the time, the chief mapper engineer, and E.P. Davis, and he testifies that this Chinaman, there was nothing sinuous about the whole thing. We can find that when he died, it went to the courts. So we now know he has a wife. That's the wife. Okay, so Tai Sing has a wife. And he has a brother. Okay? And he is a laundryman, but originally he came with Tai Sing as a group. He was supposed to go and become help the silver mines in Nevada. Tai Sing had an agreement to come to Carson City as a cook. Okay, we also know he has 2 children. 2 child, 1 boy, 1 girl, or 2 girls. We don't know if there's really a boy for many reasons. We lie that we have a boy. And the reason why we do that is we can sell the paper for $1,000 to have another boy come over. So the word she, S-H-E-E, that's probably Cantonese. So she Chan, she Fong means we don't care about you. See, so whenever you see a husband, then you find she Lee. See, so now it's changing, of course. Okay. So here we move on. That's the wife. So Tai Sing passenger manifest gives us a lot of clues, which is very important. So the ships, and it's amazing if you really want to know about this company that really went all over Asia and how much it cost, where did the Chinese live. They always were on the bottom part of the ship. And usually their trip is very amazingly inexpensive, half the price of other groups. But anyway, let's move on. Here, September 4th, you have Tai Sing returning from San Francisco. You never have a trip where we talk about going there. You only get to get a glimpse when you come back. What's good about this is I'm able to locate lots of hints about where he was born and what his mind was, what was really going on. Plus, I have facts. Okay. So in 1906, okay, here we have Wee Dam Lim, okay, in Chinese, but we know once again more information about him. It verifies. We know a lot actually. On that trip on September 4th, we know where his mother lives. So I need the help of this group for the future to locate where many years ago his mother lived. So at Hakwan is where his mother, and Hakwan is fascinating, interesting. As you can see, he's a cook. Okay. So why did he start in December September 3rd started claiming. Why did he say that he lived in Virginia City? Why did he have, I can tell you why. Because he's trying to bring his wife over here. He was stuck, he was having a problem. He has a child. He has a child, he needs to bring his family over. He is successful. He's making a lot of money, $40 a month. Now you're saying that's not really a lot, but what it is to a cook, seasonally, you have an income that's steady. So these are real pictures of the ship that he traveled. 1914, there was actually 4 trips, okay? And again, there's a lot of information. So in 1914, we start finding out that he's married, okay? We find out about his wife. The sad part about the whole thing was he was rejected as having residency. So the story of Taising is sad, but let me tell you some more things before we get to that. So this is the pay rate for going to Carson City. You can see, get an idea what you would be paid for. A head logger would be paid this much. A lumber person, you got a section. Anyway, you've got meal people. Okay, you have a camp cook, right? $55 a month. Okay, seasonally probably. You have all these different pay rates. Okay, so a cook is pretty decent. And this is his brother went to a mining camp, and Taising went to Carson City. What's interesting, when Taising arrived in 1885, he arrived in a time, the worst time ever, because 1882, they passed the Chinese Exclusion Act. So if he did not have residency, they were going to kick him out, send him back home. So immediately upon arrival, there was no Angel Island when he arrived. So he sat around in San Francisco. The family association came and brought them from a paddle boat, a steamboat, ferry boat, all the way up to Sacramento. Yee Fow immediately was greeted by the Chinese family association again, who helped him. And then he would take a horse ride in a wagon up to Carson City. And then Carson City, he would then go greeted again by the family association. And just so happened, the family association was next to the courthouse, also next to the U.S. Geological Survey, which just opened up with R.B. Marshall. Okay? So that's why within 2 years he found the job. They became something like, this is a bad choice of word, but like the Tonton and the Lone Ranger for the next many, many years. With the Geary Act, right after about the same time, the Chinese Exclusion Act, you'll find that everybody started whining because there was no more houseboys, nobody to cook for us. So something is wrong here. We can't just ban all these Chinese people, okay? So what they did was to change the status and call it the cooks merchants. Okay? So when Taising is not working seasonally, helping the engineers map out the terrains, he would then find a job. So you'll find that he did work for a wealthy family off season. Okay? So he was good enough to work for non-Chinese rich families and supplement his income. So am I putting together a feeling now? See, this is what Richard, so what's happening is we're now in Yin, so now we're beginning to have some substance, which is all part of all of us. This is the same experience that my family had using paper names. most of you, many of you still have the paper name. My dad went and had a test, and he passed the Constitution, and immediately my name was changed to Soohoo, my real name. But I live with the idea that Lim is my other name. So here, this is a picture of him, okay? And he is desperately trying to use his bosses to create residency. Every time he took a trip, he would lie. And he would get letters from his bosses to support him that he is an American citizen. Piece by piece, he was able to do that. And he bought U.S. bonds, war bonds, to try to say, I'm just an American as any of you. And we have, really, anyway, incredible information, okay? And you'll find these incredibly powerful people vouching for him. And then you have an amazing interrogation at Angel Island, because by 1916 we have actually the interrogation. So we know a lot about Tai Sing by the interrogation. Okay, fascinating. Okay, then you see here that he tells you where his wife is, and he tells you all sorts of little things. And I hope that some soon we'll be able to locate his great grandkids who now, because you have to remember, the children of his wife now are just passed away. So now the kids, they don't even know that their father has a mountain named after him. They have no idea. So let's see here. So there's a lot of material. Which is interesting about this naming the Sing Peak after Tai Sing's death. The duration of time is amazing. Oops, sorry. Because if you look closely, his boss already in 1899 already said, we got to name this mountain and give it to Tai Sing because he helped us so much. There was no other cook that ever actually he would actually go first on these donkeys, and he might fall off. And it's true. Some of the things that he said are true, and that is, it's better me dead than you. Okay, so that shows you something about his thinking. But 1899, R.B. Marshall, in 1932, they finally were able to agree to give him this. It tells me that there was a lot of work. There's a lot of guilt by R.B. Marshall. Okay? I mean, if Tonto died, Lone Ranger would not feel good. So, question and answer, because we have a cooking demo following next as a practitioner. Okay? So, what kind of questions? Please do not hesitate. This is respectful. This is about why we're here. Tai Sing, right?
So maybe you have to do one side of the room and then switch back and forth. So any questions from this side?
What's the similarity between a chuck wagon and a Tai Sing setup?
A chuck wagon. Well, there's a lot of pictures about chuck wagons, and you're asking a real tough question. You have to just go back into the era. And I've looked at all these different kinds of wagons that fed people. Then you got this basic, then you have this nice one that you know what I'm saying? So it's really hard to say. But
Would the chuck wagon have like the same type of oven that he has, or is something he says? I think I remember he invented that.
no, that actually I can tell you that there are many cooks that actually have that foldable. It was metal, and you fold out as a chimney. Actually, it's quite common.
Okay.
And then every time they went out, they would simply they would be able to fold it up and carry it on a horseback or donkey, and then just basically open up and set up. So there's a lot of pictures like that. But the question about how the food was transported, that's what happened. He was on a wagon loaded with food supply and the mapping equipment, and he went all the way up to San Francisco because McAdoo, Secretary Treasurer, asked him to come. And then what happened is here's another story. He was replaced. The poor guy was replaced. Then he had to go all the way back on the wagon, down back all the way to San Benito while they're mapping out the area. And then what happened is, so the question is, anyway, then the wagon rolls over him, kills him, hits a rock in the head, and you should see the sad part about how long it took the machine to come. And so, it's a machine, right? So you have to think, oh, that's an automobile. See, so, and then the poor guy was still alive. I wouldn't mind he was dead already. He wasn't. So then finally, after a long time, he ended up in the pharmacy.
So that's how he died, by accident on his own wagon?
The report really is really skimpy. I say it's accident, but I don't like what I hear.
Okay.
The way he was treated after the accident. You see, I think they could have helped him. They could have done better. Okay, but at the time, you have to remember, you know, he's just a laborer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Replaceable.
Yeah. So, yes.
No, David, can you comment on? I thought there was a discrepancy.
Sure.
On his birthplace, because it said Virginia City, but I always thought that he was born in China.
He was born in China,
Okay.
and the reason why they said there's only 1 year that only 1 year in the 2 trips after he was married, and it was time to start saying this because he needed a cover, and then his boss wrote in these letters that he is just as American as anybody else. In 1917, 1916 is the National Park Service, right? The Park Service. In the year following 1917, there was a newspaper article how this Chinaman was born in Nevada and he was denied birthright because they put a fire, and that perpetuated this whole idea. Okay?
So
But
it wasn't true that he was born?
no, there's all I can tell you right now it's not. And I can tell you for sure. Okay? But what does this really mean? It's just a story, and it's great, because now this is your story, right? Your parents. This is the typical story of the immigrants. They trying to do better, trying to help, and there's so many stories, okay? And I would say, that's great, okay? So now we have more information. Yes, questions? Yes.
How did it come to be that St. Pete was named after him? What was the backstory of that?
Well, when he died, I'll tell you right now, R.B. Marshall felt guilty. There's no way in the world that his boss of this many years, R.B. Marshall is the chief mapping person from Washington that opened the office in Carson City when Tyson arrived. And what happened is that he needed a job as a cook, and next door, within a short time, he was officially hired. The problem is they passed a law that time in the 1882 Chinese exclusion. The government cannot hire Chinese.
That's right.
See, so that's why you don't hear anything about him. When he died, he was denied all workers' compensation because he's not part of our government hired employees. So he received nothing.
It's because he was seasonal.
Seasonal,
That's
correct.
Federal.
Yes. See, so here we join forces to really get a better picture, but it's fascinating at the same time. That is typical, right? Typical of that era, the time. What do people do? You know. And then I'll give you other cooks example. So the guy in 1900, you heard about James Beard, right? You know who he is? He is the man. He is the godfather of American cuisine, right? But his teacher really is Juliet, a Chinaman. So, because his mother replaces 2 French chefs with this Chinese cook. And that's her boarding house. So as a child of 3 years old, raised by Juliet, he actually taught him how to cook. So what happened is, when he went back to China, he can't come back. So we lost Juliet. Okay, and then same goes for many other stories like that. Bing Cherry is another one. What happened to the guy who Bing Cherry, that's a Chinese person. Then you have the orange, by grafting, he created the orange that can handle the freezing temperatures in Florida. So it saved the industry. So food-wise, I mean, the Chinese literally built the delta, farmed it until they passed a law that says you can't own farmland. And then that's when the Japanese came and worked and gave us bean sprouts for our chop suey. So back then the Chinese and they were not adversaries. Actually, they worked together. So till food came, and then your question about fortune cookie. Well, of course, it was the Japanese that invented it. We don't have fortune cookies, but because it was supplied by the Japanese, now we know why fortune cookie. And this apple pie bit, why did he know apple pie? Well, it just so happens you can't be a cook unless you know how to make apple pie from the British-owned colony of Hong Kong. It was owned by the Europeans. They would never eat Chinese food. They had to have their own puddings. So even before they came, see, so they were trained by the Europeans. So they already knew. Yes.
More question.
Tai Singh, when he worked for the U.S. Geological Survey, what did he actually do? What's his contribution?
Well, this is where it gets really, it's not about what I know, as people like Yin Yin, and I can tell you right now, next to me, Jack Shu. I mean, they live and breathe the politics and everything. I am the guy who nearly died working. That's why I'm a king. You see, because I was brought up in the same era where we give everything, and not about necessarily money, but because we have culture. We're driven by a certain idea, principles that today, you know, it's a little bit harder. Most people today say it's beyond my pay grade. Nobody ever says that back then, okay? You know, nobody ever says what's in it for me. You know, that's the way it was. You commit to it, make sure you work, and that's the commitment by the laundry people, by the all immigrants. Okay. Okay. Moving forward. More questions, please. Yes.
Yeah. Can you say again what you know about Tai Singh's descendants? I think you mentioned his kids that would have passed away by now, but grandkids. Or...
That's what's fun about this, what we're going on. So Jack, I hope, and Yin Yin, I hope that we pursue this. The resources here are, and the way we proceed ahead is really quite amazing, because we're now going back into the roots of the time period about what did the Yee family go through. See, what did the Yees experience back then? Why did the kids, why were the kids, why did Tai Singh arrive? And it was typical. If you arrived in America at the time, it was always a group of people of the same family name. It was a Wong, like 20 Wongs all one time. So the people found a job for them, they signed a contract, and off you go. Once you arrive, you're looking at the family, you go, why in the heck did this spread everywhere? Because they're on a contract. Okay? So each one of these people have stories. And what really drove me passionately is because I was amazed at what all of you are doing. Seriously. I'm a Lim. It's a fake name. So I cook, so I know, I can feel his pain. Okay?
Maybe one more question?
Yeah, to follow up the descendants, if the 8-year-old, can you look up the records? And when some of us are, you know, doing the Chinese genealogy with Henry Tom or Ron Chan or whoever, so you're able to access at the NARA archives for someone who's not your family ancestor, right? And they allow you to do that. So are there any records of other people also searching the same records? that may or may not know their descendants?
This is a real hard one because I give credit to Dave Lee in San Francisco because I contacted him very early. I mean, the reason why is because he's an expert. And most people will tell you it's very difficult because if you go to the village, you tell them anything, they say, I'm your family. Hey, I'm Tai Sing's family member. That's the first thing they say. You're going, what? And then they, for the next question, they go, do you have a relative who wants to get married? I got a girl here. I got to get rid of her. You know, that's the typical, even today, is it? So you're going to have a hard time unless you know the games and the real. You see what I'm getting at? It's quite amazing stories about.
Did anybody try to track the 8-year-old?
It costs money. That's where we get it. So we have to get qualified people and have some sort of something that I think Jack is incredibly ahead of us. Also, of course, I don't want to leave out Eugene, and of course, I don't want to leave Doc, who brought the walk here, and I don't want to leave out my driver, Norman Fong, who brought the North State to Elk Grove for pharmacies. He built that. Now he's doing the hospital. So we're trying to build Sacramento. And I really appreciate your heart there. Okay, we need it. We're Yee Fow.
In terms of Tai Sing and his heritage, his information, Lynn and the whole family, it's a huge academic process that we're embarking on. And you know, David's done so much work on that area, so it's really interesting for the things he's brought up, the documents he's brought up. It is all new, relatively new research material. And you guys know in the academic world and with the National Park Service and historians, there's going to be a while before we straighten all of it out and whether or not, you know, what we can do with this information, how much of it is that we can work with. So it is a huge thing. I was explaining to David, actually, that's, you know, that's Tai Sing graduate level type stuff. We got a ways to go there before we cover that. But it's really interesting because, you know, all this stuff with regards to all of our heritage, I know it's true for my wife's family, all of our families. There's a lot, so much there to do. And each time you go a step, you find there's another 5 steps to go. So there's a lot more. And we just have to be patient and
Thanks for watching Yee Fow Adventures. If you like content like this, please like and subscribe and hit that like button. Until next time, take care and let's find your next adventure.